I might actually rephrase that a little bit. I'm not sure I've seen a lot of companies flourish in crisis. And I think part of the reason, and if you think back to when was the last, if you ask someone, what was the last company that performed well in a crisis, most often you hear Johnson & Johnson, which was like 30 years ago. And they haven't done very well most recently in their present crisis. But so it's always struck me as very strange that companies, particularly in the U.S., don't learn from other companies' experiences when they're in crisis. And I think part of the reason is, and I've thought about this a lot and had recently done some speaking on it, I think part of the reason is that companies, when they are not prepared for a crisis, number one, and then when it hits, they think they're unique. They think, we can handle this, we know the company better, we can manage this crisis. And those are two fatal flaws. One key mistake is not recognizing that most companies need outside resources when crises strike, and they don't need them. They can't identify them when it happens. They have to have already identified them in preparation for a crisis. So, for example, I would counsel companies right now who don't have any problems at all, any regulatory problems, any law enforcement problems, anything, to have identified the communications firm, the Washington government relations, the local and state folks that they need to know. And while they don't have to pay them a whole bunch of money to do anything, having people out there who understand the company's story and what they're all about and their principles, when something happens, they can call upon them, and those guys are ready with the talking points in their back pockets. I mean, a lot of that takes strategic thought and anticipation and forward looking, which most companies aren't good at doing because they're in the middle of doing whatever they're doing every day. But I think that's a key area that is not difficult for companies to do, and in the long run will be a great preparation step when something happens. The second thing is, I think that in my experience, having been through a lot of crises, both on the Sears level, then WorldCom, of course, daily, and then AIG minute by minute, is having a core group of people that you can bring together instantly anytime that there is a crisis. And you can predetermine who those folks are, and they're usually the business that's involved, the functional, the general counsel, legal, regulatory, compliance, public relations, government relations, communications, core people of 8 or 10 that every company generally has. Knowing where they are at any given moment in time, and knowing that you can bring them together in a war room setting when something starts to get out of control. Because once the crisis starts getting legs of its own, that's when companies lose the ability to manage the message, and that's when they become vulnerable to reputation damage. Financial services is going to be affected for a very long time, I think, and the spillover into any kind of even basic industry is going to be there. But I think in the compliance environment, I think compliance and regulatory organizations are going to have an evolution similar to what the General Counsel's Office had over the past 10 years. They're going to be front and center. They're going to be more important. They're going to be on the front line.